Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're taking a slow, deliberate walk through a really profound philosophical concept. We throw the word freedom around all the time, right? We just assume we know exactly what it means in our day-to-day lives. We think it's just about doing what we want, exactly when we want to do it. But do we really understand the hidden dynamics of true autonomy? Let's just take a deep breath and explore what it actually means to be free. Because, well, it's easy to feel like we're the authors of our own destiny when things are going great. But freedom is trickier than that. It's quiet. It hides right there in the spaces between our decisions.
Okay, so let's dive right into this by asking a stark, fundamental question. And this is one that instantly flips our standard understanding of freedom completely on its head. Is real freedom found in choosing, or is it actually found in leaving? Now, it seems like a simple either-or scenario at first glance, but as we unpack the source material today, this question is going to require us to look incredibly deeply at the quiet, everyday decisions in our own lives. I mean, think about a bird in a cage with an open door. Is that bird free because it can choose which perch to sit on inside the cage, or is it only truly free the moment it flies out?
Which brings us to part one, the illusion of choice. Our traditional surface-level assumption is that freedom simply means making choices. We stand in front of countless doors and think to ourselves, hey, I have options, therefore I am free. But as we're going to systematically uncover, this traditional view is kind of like a mirage. Just having doors in front of you doesn't mean you aren't secretly being pushed through one of them. Modern life literally bombards us with this dizzying array of options, what to buy, where to live, who to be, and it tricks us into equating sheer abundance with actual liberation. So the crucial point here is this. Choosing is freedom when, and literally only when, you genuinely have alternatives. It sounds obvious, doesn't it? But the reality is we trick ourselves all the time. We think we're making a free, unconstrained choice, but we're actually just picking the most comfortable option within a really tight, invisible cage. Imagine deciding to stay late at a super demanding job. You might tell yourself you're choosing to be dedicated, but, if the alternative is not being able to pay rent, well, you didn't really choose. You just picked the apple over the orange, completely ignoring the iron bars surrounding both of them. Now, what's really interesting about this is how these specific, silent, psychological constraints are what actually dictate our so-called choices. Let's just sit with these for a second. Fear, habit, expectations, money, attachment, identity. Sometimes we choose a path not because we freely want it, but because we feel trapped by one of these invisible forces. When your decision to stay in a relationship is driven by the fear of what other people expect, or maybe your career choice is bound by a desperate attachment to an old identity, that choice is constrained. It traps us, even when we are technically the ones deciding. We wear these constraints for so long, they honestly start to feel like our own skin. And that brings us to part two, the power of leaving. If choosing can sometimes be an illusion, masked by all our constraints, well, we have to look at the exact opposite action. We have to confront the stark and, honestly, often incredibly difficult reality of simply walking away. The source material makes a really powerful, almost unsettling claim here. Leaving reveals freedom, much more starkly than choosing does. Now, why is that? It's because the physical or mental act of walking away actively strips away all of those illusions we just talked about. It forcefully cuts right through the habit, the money, the expectations. It's a genuine, raw form of liberation because it requires you to actively break a heavy bond that's firmly holding you in place. You see, staying is often passive, but leaving? Man, leaving requires a burst of sheer, unfiltered willpower. This no longer fits me, and I am willing to let it go, even if I once wanted it. Just think about the deep emotional vulnerability required to actually say those words out loud. To look at something you previously desired, something you might have literally built your entire life around, and just admit that it no longer serves you. Maybe it's a dream you've completely outgrown, or a city that just doesn't feel like home anymore. That willingness to let go, despite the grief it inevitably brings, that is the true heartbeat of real freedom. And what exactly are we leaving? Well, it could be a job that just drains your spirit day by day, a relationship that no longer grows, a deeply held belief that you may be inherited from your family but never truly questioned for yourself, a place, or perhaps the absolute most difficult of all, an old version of yourself. I want you to introspectively reflect right now. Which of these profound life elements might you currently be struggling to leave behind? What are you holding on to out of sheer habit, or just comfort rather than actual expansive freedom? So this takes us right into part three, the deeper paradox.
We've looked at the illusion of choosing, and we've explored the raw power of leaving. But now, we really need to synthesize these two opposing ideas. We're going to peel back the absolute final layer of this philosophical onion to uncover the ultimate truth about human autonomy.
And here is the truly profound realization from our source text. Freedom isn't simply having the power to choose, nor is it simply having the power to leave. True freedom means you are not internally owned by either option. It means neither the safety of staying, like a heavy anchor tying you to the ocean floor, nor the flight of walking away, like a bird constantly fleeing a storm, has power over your internal state. You are the master of the decision, entirely unburdened, rather than just a reactive servant to the options sitting in front of you.
And this brilliantly illustrates the two failing conditions of freedom. First, just consider the act of staying. If you choose to stay in a situation, basically because you're secretly terrified of leaving, well, you're not entirely free. Conversely, think about the act of fleeing. If you leave a situation solely because you are terribly afraid to stay, you're not entirely free either. In both of these juxtaposed scenarios, fear is the hidden architect secretly dictating your actions. You're being pushed by anxiety rather than being pulled by genuine, authentic autonomy. Which brings us to the climax of our explainer today, the ultimate definition of freedom. Freedom is being able to stay without being trapped and leave without being compelled. Let those words breathe for just a second. Being able to stay without being trapped and leave without being compelled. That is what true unconstrained autonomy actually is. It's a state of total internal peace, regardless of the external circumstances constantly pulling at you. You're anchored by your own inner stillness.
So, we arrive at our final conclusion. Choosing is the expression of freedom. Leaving is sometimes the proof of it. Think about the massive choices you're making today. Are they expressions of true freedom, or are they just comfortably decorated cages? And what might you need to finally leave behind to prove your own autonomy to yourself? Take these questions, look closely at your own life, and keep learning.